What's up, travelers? Good morning. It is the morning of Wednesday, June 3rd, 2020. I know I promised y'all a guest spot yesterday with Chris Palmer, and we are going to get to that, but she was just caught up with so much shit yesterday, trying to deal with the backlash of the list and all that shit that we decided we're going to get to it today. It will be a special edition. I may upload it today or tomorrow, but she and I are going to get together and we're going to tell some stories about our own personal, history and experiences with this shit. So that's definitely going to be something we're tuning in for. It's certainly happening, but in the meantime, I didn't want to go that long without cutting another episode. So I wanted to just do a quick one. With that being said, I'm gonna get rolling. So, first of all, local music bump. My boys out of Fayetteville, Cadillac Jackson. I've been bumping these boys for a minute, and y'all need to fucking listen to me because it's good shit. These dudes is soul shaking, booty quaking, funky skunky baby making if you ain't got a partner nearby, masturbating, revelating, name taking, cookie baking, groovy booty ass goodness. Out of Fayetteville. They funky as shit and they will get your booty moving. Go listen to the Sweet Funk Among Us. It's on Spotify, it's on Google Play, it's on Prime Music, it's on YouTube, it's everywhere. Go listen to it. It's funky as shit. Put it on, bump it. Because also, these cats know what's up. They express solidarity, they blacked out their page. Like, they made it clear in no unequivocal terms that a bunch of white dudes from Fayetteville support Black Lives Matter. So they're righteous people. And they're righteous musicians. And it's funky as hell and it's got that booty in it. So get after it. My national bump is an oldie but a goodie. I started listening to this decade ago plus when it first dropped, and it's still just as relevant, just as important, and just as fire today as it was then. The Flowbots Fight with Tools album, that is so on point right now. Like, go listen to Fight with Tools and get rowdy, because that's what's needed. We just need to get fucking rowdy and stay rowdy. Anyways, this is Coffee and Pot. Flowbots, Cadillac Jackson, put them in your ear holes, bump them. I do want to talk real quick about the Mutual Aid Disaster Relief Fund. That is a grassroots disaster relief network based on the principles of solidarity and direct action. I will post a link to that motherfucker. Y'all need, if you got 15 bucks to spend, if you got 10 bucks to spend, these cats are incredible. First of all, if you find out some of their history, you find out that like this organization formed on the ground after Katrina, and I'll tell you what they did. They didn't show up and with all these plans and all this other stuff and say this is what we're going to bring to the community. No, they showed up and they asked the community, what do you need? And the community said, well, right now we need a clinic. And so they built a fucking clinic. And the community said, well, we need access to food and water. And so they got them food and water. And by the end of their stay in Katrina, they had 7 clinics running. They had food and water distribution all over the place, making sure folks had what they need. They had clothes going out to people. They had rescue operations going out. They was getting materials to rebuild houses. Like, these cats got on the ground and showed solidarity by asking what the folk need and then doing their best to provide it for them. 4 of those clinics, I believe, are still running to this day. Now, they are no longer, tents set up with, as a triage location, and, they're really probably no longer really heavily anarcho-leaning either, but they still exist. Like, these cats got on the ground in a disaster, and they built what needed to be built for the community. So, I definitely recommend that the Mutual Aid Disaster Relief Fund get some love from you. It's a hell of a way to spend a couple bucks, and it's going to get used right within the community. It's going to go where it needs to go directly. Excuse me. So, Everybody else been making their call outs. I'm gonna make some call outs. How about it? Let's call some motherfuckers out. Dan Fritz, Lauren Holiday, Amanda Baker, Johnny Ragsdale, Colt Yearwood. I see y'all, and I thank y'all. These are reverse call outs, y'all, by the way. Y'all may not have been doing this work for years. You may have never been involved in some political bullshit before in your lives. But I see all of you making an effort to understand, to educate yourselves, to educate others, to just be involved and let your voice be their voice. And that is the most righteous thing, and I love you so much for it. So, thank you. Expect more reverse call-outs. They're coming. I'm making a list. Y'all are righteous, and I love you, and I thank you. Dan Fritz, Lauren Holiday, Amanda Baker, Johnny Ragsdale, Cole Yearwood, and there's many more to come. Those are just the ones that are on top of my head right now. I see you, and you're doing righteous, and thank you. I got asked by a buddy last night. He said, why did it take 3 months for the government to declare COVID an emergency, and it took 3 days to declare the rise of the BLM protest an emergency? I'll tell you why. Because they're fucking terrified of black rage. Not because they're worried that they're going to get beat down at the hands of black folk like the black folk have been getting beat down at the hands of, white power structures for 400 years. Although, maybe they should be. That's not for me to say. But they make tons and tons of money off of blaxploitation. There's prison, pipeline, and they are literally selling these cats in prison as slave labor. Predatory lending places in poor and urban areas, poor and urban slumlords. Like, there are so many power structures that are invested in keeping these folks poor, broke, and powerless. And when they see that they may not bear the shackles anymore, it makes them terrified. It makes them fucking righteous afraid, because they got a huge vested interest in maintaining the oppression in those communities. They got a huge vested interest in keeping those people shackled and caged. And when they see the people shrugging off the shackles, waking up, it scares the fuck out of them. So don't let them put them back in a cage. And I ain't saying, go do whatever the hell you think is necessary to aid in that struggle. I'm saying seek out the voices that are willing to educate you on how you can help as an ally. Seek those voices out and listen to them. Because they're out there. And they will teach you what you can do to use your privilege to help them shrug off those shackles. But yes, that's why it took our abysmal federal government a horrifying 3 months to declare a COVID emergency. And it took them 3 days to declare this an emergency. Because their vested interest in maintaining those communities in their current exploited place is huge. And the thought of losing access to those resources that they've carefully cultivated for centuries terrifies them, because it shifts the entire power structure. It shifts the entire hierarchy away from the colonialists. So that's why. I've also had a lot of folk reaching out to me, just asking questions, which is righteous. Not just about, you know, Black Lives Matter, not just about that struggle in general, but because I talk about anarchy a lot. And a lot of folks reach out to me, and I've had several people say, well, you know, the only thing I know about anarchy is that a bunch of punks with mohawks, you know, spray painted on shit back in the, you know, 70s, 80s, 90s, whatever. You know, you're not seriously an advocate of lawlessness and chaos and what have you. Listen, there's plenty of education out there on anarchy. Um, it's not new. It's. What if I told you that it was the oldest form of civil organization on the planet? It's not something the punks came up with in the 70s and 80s so that they could smash shit and be cool. It's the oldest form of civil organization on the planet. We got 3 million years worth of indigenous folk organizing themselves without hierarchy, without coercion. And where we haven't eradicated them, they still exist today as functioning anarchistic models. Now, that's not to say that all the ones that are, you know, on their reservations, all the indigenous folk that are basically forced into our practice of, you know, totalitarian agriculture are still able to maintain that model. But where indigenous folk are left untouched and unmolested in the world today, you will find working anarchistic models. So, I mean, it's literally as old as humanity. They exist without formal hierarchies, and they exist in completely egalitarian modes. You can find, you know, like anarchistic thought in the written record dating back to ancient Greece and China, where philosophers questioned the necessity of the state and advocated the right of each to live free from coercion. The Age of Enlightenment, at the end of the Dark Ages, saw science, you know, begin to flourish, scientific thought, and it also saw, you know, the birth of modern anarchistic movements. So this is where we, like, at the end of the Dark Ages, you really, in the Age of Enlightenment, you really start to see people questioning whether or not we should be living within these existing hierarchies. And can people not just manage to live on their own, free from coercion, and still do the right thing? And so that's where you really see it begin to actually become like a modern school of thought. At the end of the 19th century, we saw the rise in industrialization, and with that, we saw the rise of oppression. So, had a good couple years there at the end of the Middle Ages, up until, you know, the 19th century, whenever we start seeing mass industrialization, and then suddenly everybody's right back in shackles again. And that naturally led to even more anarchistic thought. And the anarchists themselves were a key part of the labor movement that cropped up at that time. And they supported the labor movement throughout its history. They have shown up in support of, you know, organizing folks pretty much since folks been organizing. The anarchists have showed up in support of them. Which is funny. Maybe we'll do another episode on how many times once those folks that are organizing or revolting get what they want and their demands are met, they end up fucking the anarchist, because they're easy to fuck. And that's unfortunate, and we'll get into that maybe on a later episode or something. But, you know, peoples without hierarchies, unfortunately, don't you know, organize as well as they should when it comes to like huge state apparatuses, or brand new state apparatuses designed by like Bolsheviks and shit. They usually crush them. The only way that it works is through participation, and everybody got to get involved, or it doesn't work. If there's still a group that is out there, amassing power, amassing resources, amassing munitions, then yeah, we probably get fucked. So, it's got to be a global social acceptance of living without hierarchies before it works. And, that's one of the main problems with it. I'm not saying that it's going to happen right away or anytime soon, probably, but as we get closer and closer to free energy, as we get closer and closer to this worldwide, connectivity where we start to feel each other, we see each other, we see how people ought to live, we're getting closer and closer to that point where we can exist without hierarchies en masse. And, we'll get there at some point. In the meantime, we'll keep showing up and helping folks when they need help, and then those folks will typically turn around and fuck us off. But whatever. It's cool. It's our ethos. We show up and we help liberate folk from oppressive systems. That's how we do it. Sometimes they get rowdy and they get stupid and they fuck stuff up too. I'm not denying that. I never have. But like I said before in the last episode, I don't believe that they're the ones that are burning minority and community-owned businesses. That is, entirely in opposition to their ethos, and typically anarcho folks bear their ethos as a fundamental part of their humanity. So you won't convince me that those are folks that really subscribe to the theory. They may paint a red anarchy symbol on their shirts, but that don't make them anarchists. That makes them agitators. So, where were we? Oh, we got the Dadaist movement. There's the Spanish Civil War, where anarchists established an anarcho territory in Catalonia. Of course, that got crushed. Here recently, 1994, and this one is one that's still kicking. The Zapatistas movement in Chiapas. You need to research that. I'm not going to get into it now. I could do a whole fucking episode on the Zapatistas. Viva la Zapatista, ya basta. But those guys have some really, really, really inspiring material, and you should really look them up. Rojava in Kurdistan, the folks that Trump just abandoned and left to the Turks to do with as they will. Yet that was a radical anarcho-feminist system that was set up and operating and functioning, and it was working. The people were happy, they were healthy, they were fed, they were all involved in their system of self-government, and they fought and died for it because they loved it so much. Which again, going back to those indigenous folk, you see tribes in South America commit suicide en masse. I'm not glorifying that, but I'm saying they had a system that worked so fucking well for them that they would rather kill themselves than be subjugated to ours. You see tribes all over the world, all throughout history, that literally fought to the last man. Because what we had to offer as, you know, the Western Front or totalitarian agriculturalist or whatever and however it went, what we had to offer wasn't working for them. So you see Seattle and Portland with the largest populations of homeless folk almost on, you know, in the country for sure. And you start to think, oh, well, that's just because of terrible management, or that's just because of whatever. Well, no, it's because they're friendly to homeless folk. Um, and what happens is that you find out that a lot of the folk up there are able-bodied. They are of sound, you know, mind. They're not neurodivergent or anything like that. They just don't want what's on offer here. They would literally rather live in the street. So, and that's worth considering. I'm not saying that we should all just go homeless or whatever, obviously, but it's worth advocating for better systems, whatever that system is. If you feel like it could work, then put some research into it. Do some studying. Find out if it could work, if people could live better that way, because the way that we're living right now is destroying the planet. It's destroying the peoples. Comfortable white folks will sit here and say, wow, this is the best system on the planet. You've got the liberty. You've got, you know, the wealth. You've got all these resources available to you. Well, yeah, if you're comfortable white folk, then you do. All the rest of the folk don't. And our wealth is propped up by exploitation of our minority communities here in the States, and it's propped up by exploitation of third world countries and their resources everywhere. That's what gives us the comfortable life that we're able to live, and then we sit here and smugly say that we've got the best system in the world and we need to export that to every place on the planet. We already did. We exported our systems to those places. Unfortunately, they're on the wrong end of a gun, and while we're exporting our democracy to them, we're exporting all of their wealth. We're extracting all of their wealth from their civilizations and bringing them back here so that we can be fat and happy and comfortable. I just happen to believe that that's not right. Like, our planet's dying. Our ecosystems are collapsing and crashing, and I mean, it's real. And y'all can research that too. Again, I'm rambling, but you know, if you don't like anarchy, cool. Go look for something else. It doesn't even have to be an ism. Come up with your own damn system of government. Whatever it is, we are the most innovative species on the planet. You can't tell me we can't come up with a way to live that doesn't destroy the planet and doesn't destroy the folk in the process. And we gotta work for it. It's worth working for. We gotta break free of the prisons in here. So that's it. I'm gonna wrap it up because I'm getting really long-winded. We're 23 minutes into this. It's gonna take a million years to upload. I love you guys, and I will see you later whenever I sit down with Chris Palmer and talk to you for a little bit about some shit. So, fucking power to the people. I'll see you in the streets. Black Lives Matter. I love you.